Hello, friends. Today we will talk about Express Entry. We'll discuss how the Express Entry system works, what are the documents, and what are the steps required to create an Express Entry profile, right? So before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Sandhu, and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant based out of Ontario, Canada. And here's the disclaimer. So this is only for informational purposes and should not be construed as legal or professional advice. If you want one, book a consultation with a licensed practitioner, could be a consultant, could be an immigration lawyer for that matter. So why this video is very important. One of them is that immigration has become much tougher, right? And the immigration officers have been unforgiving. Any mistake you create in your profile, any documents which are not correct, they will return your application or your application will get refused at some point in time. So that's something important to understand. And so without any further ado, let's dive into what is Express Entry system. So first of all, a lot of people actually confuse Express Entry with, oh, they say I applied in Express Entry. So there is no applying. So you create a profile in Express Entry, and Express Entry is not the name of a program, right? Express Entry is a application management system. So it's an online system which IRCC uses to manage applications from skilled workers. So now they have a very different definition of skilled workers as well, right? It's not like, for example, you're working as a plumber, so you're a skilled worker. So skilled worker here means that in Canada, every occupation is given a knock code, a 5-digit knock code. For example, if you're a food service supervisor, you will have a knock code such as 62020. If you're IT professional, you will have something starting with 2. It would be some knock code like that. And every knock code, basis of every knock code, they also have divided it into tiers. So tier 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If your job, when I'm saying job, actually, I mean work experience, because Express Entry related programs are backward facing, right? So they are not like what you're going to be doing in future. They are about what you have already done. So they are based on work experience. So if you look at the work experience, the one thing is very important is that it has to be a skilled work. So what is defined as a skilled work? So skilled work would be any experience you would have gained while your work experience is in tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. Tier 4 and tier 5 are not included. So tier 0 would be something like a managerial occupation. Tier 1 would be mostly professional occupations which require some kind of university. May not be you could be a web developer, which is tier 1, and have no education at all. That could also work, but I'm just giving you a general thought process. So tier 1 would be professional, tier 2 would be any kind of supervisory position, such as somebody like retail sales supervisor, or certain kind of technical positions such as plumber, electrician. Those would come under tier 2. And then you have tier 3, like administrative officers, or it could be truck drivers. So those would probably come under tier 3. And then you have tier 4 and tier 5. Tier 4 would be something like a customer service representative. Let's say you are working in a bank and you're working as a customer service or teller in front. That will most likely be in tier 4 unless your job duties matches with anything above that. Tier 5 could be, anything like cashiers, anyone who work as helpers, right? Those kind of thing. So you need to understand that Express's entry is only for those who have work experiences in tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. And then there are 3 immigration programs which are managed through Express Entry. So think of Express Entry as some kind of, let's say, if you were to get into some college, right? So Express Entry would be something like an online application system in which you can go to like multiple colleges and multiple programs, right? So similarly, Express Entry in Canadian immigration will get you. So there's only one application. There's only one set of questions. Based on those questions you answer, you could fall under the Canadian experience class, or you can fit into federal skilled worker program or federal skilled trades program, or you can also fit into one or two or three programs as well. You could be somebody who can, met the requirements for all three programs. That's hypothetically and technically possible. So now let's look into the steps, right? What are the steps for creating your express entry profile, right? So, and I will also give you some tools related to that. And another thing which I think I missed is that why express entry linked programs are super critical, right? And this is based on the immigration level plan, right? So this is the immigration level plan for 2025 till 2027, but we definitely know this is for 2025, which is 395,000 people. And the economic immigration, right, is 232,000. And under economic immigration, remove the Quebec because that is something where express entry doesn't cater to anyways, and we're going to exclude them. So you can see that it's less than 200,000 people who can get PR through economic immigration. But now the first two, the federal economic priorities and in Canada focus, these 41 plus 82, if you add them up, it's around 120,000. So 60%, actually more than 60% of people will get their PR in economic immigration through express entry linked programs. So that's make it very, very important that you do not ignore this part of the application. And there are very, very few who will get it through the provincial nominee program, around 55,000. And they have reduced it from the 110,000, which was for 2024. Okay. Now coming back to, so first thing you need to look into is that if you are eligible, right? So you have a tool which IRCC provided, right? And you can look into the tool and answer some questions, and it can quickly give you an answer whether you're eligible for any program. So you can always check your eligibility. It will ask you question which territory or province you are most interested in. Let's say somebody is interested in Ontario, and then it has questions related to language and things like that. And based on that, it will tell you whether you're eligible for something or not. And even the better way to find eligibility is to actually go to the programs itself, right? And if you click on Canadian Experience Class requirement, and you can quickly find out whether you have what it takes in order to be eligible for the Canadian Experience Class. I'll give you a snapshot of how you can look into the eligibility criteria for different programs. Now, if you look at the Canadian Experience Class and let's say Federal Skilled Worker Program, first is the language requirements. So the requirements for language is CLB 7 for Canadian Experience Class. If your work experience is in tier 0 or 1, if your work experience is in tier 2 or tier 3, then the requirements are CLB 5. Federal skilled worker is CLB level 7. Then, as I mentioned previously as well, that your work experience has to be in one of the high skilled occupation. And what is high skilled occupation? Any experience which you have in tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. Similarly for federal skilled worker program as well. And then how much experience do you need? You need for Canadian Experience Class 1 year experience in Canada in the last 3 years. It should be full time. And if it's part time, it has to be equivalent, right? So full time is 30 hours per week for 52 weeks. And part time would be anything from 1 hour to 30 hours or less than 30 hours, right? So that would be not 30 hours, so actually less than 30 hours. It could be even 29 hours, for example. So let's say you were only doing 20 hours per week instead of 30 hours. So it will take you 1.5 years to do 1 year of experience. And for the federal skilled worker program, you need 1 year of continuous work experience in the last 10 years, right? In your primary occupation. Job offer not required. So when I'm saying job offer not required, so they're specifically mentioning about the, let's say, LMI or LMI exempt job offer. So those are not required. And even any other job offer is not required because it's a backward facing, right? But if you have a job offer, a valid job offer based on an LMIA or LMI exempt, you may qualify for 50 points or 200 points, depending on the kind of job offer and what tier it is. Education requirements, not required. Here you have grade 12. So some people are very surprised when I generally say that Canadian education class, right, experience class does not have any education requirement. So you could have been like, say, for example, be a kindergarten grade 1 student. So technically you are eligible for Canadian experience class, right? Okay, so now let's come back to the requirement to check the score. So now let's say first you now know that you are eligible, right? So you can look into the eligibility requirements and you find that you are eligible. You have 1 year of Canadian experience, right? And that experience for Canadian experience class can be cumulative and can be in different NOC. So you could have been working as a truck driver for 6 months, which is tier 3, and you can work as an IT manager for 6 months, which is tier 0. Combined, if you are 1 year experience in the last 3 years, you are technically eligible. And then what you need is you need to check your score, right? And the tool they call it comprehensive ranking tool. You can use that tool to estimate your score. If you entered everything correctly, it will give you a score out of 1200, and you can see how much score have you got, right? Why is that important? Because after creating your express entry profile, you will be in a pool with all other people, right? So when you're in the pool, you will be ranked based on the CRS score. So learning about a CS score, that whether your score is competitive, is a good idea, because that will help you to navigate whether you have to focus on PNPs or you have to focus on something else, and how you can increase your score. Because if you do not know what is your CLS score, that is a huge red flag in itself, right? So you can always use the CLS tool to create a to understand your score. For example, let's say if somebody is never married, they are single, let's say they are 21 years of age, their level of education is, let's say, a master's or a diploma or anything, right? So whether they have done Canadian, let's say yes, and let's say they did a 2-year diploma as well, then the language, based on that, all of these questions, they will get a score at the end of the exercise. Then get your documents ready, right? So now what document do you need? So there are a few documents you need definitely to create your profile. One of the most important document is like your language scores. So you cannot create your score if your language score is not in your hand. So what language scores are acceptable? So if you see here, it could be CELPIP General, IELTS General, PTE Core, TEF Canada for French, TCF Canada for French as well. And now, when you look at the requirements, right? So they always talk in terms of CLB. They talk about CLB 7, they talk about CLB 5. So this translates into you have to see that how your test scores translate to CLB level, right? For example, if it's a CELPIP, CLB 7 and CLB scores for your reading, writing, listening, and speaking exactly same. But if it's IELTS, CLB 7 means 6, 6, 6, 6, 6 in each, and PTE Core, then these are the scores. And if it is TEF, then these are the scores. And it's TEF Canada, and if you're given the test after January 10th, then these are the scores. So you need to meet the minimum eligibility requirement for your scores. So let me see, where is this, what documents do you require? So one document you definitely require was, the mention is the language test, and you need to have a passport travel document, and you need to have the education, right? It depends on which program you're applying to. For Canadian experience class, you do not need any education as such. But if you don't have education, you will not get enough CLS points in order to be competitive profile. And if you have a highest education, let's say from outside Canada, let's say somebody done a master's from outside Canada, in that case, you need to get the education credential assessment done. And where you can get this education credential assessment done, you can go get it done from the many organizations where you can get it done from. So these are the ones. One is run by University of Toronto, Comparative Education Services. There's a West Canada. There is ICAS. I think this is a University of Guelph. I think that's the one which does this. And then you have ICAS. This is done by, I think, BCIT College, or maybe I just don't remember. So ICAS is from Alberta organization. Then there is a ICES, British Columbia Institute of Technology. And if you had experience in the professional in professional occupations such as architect, let's say family physician, pharmacist, then these are the designated organizations for that, right? And then you have the provincial nomination. If you have one, obviously you will provide that. If not, then it's fine. And similarly, a job offer, not required. But if you have a valid job offer based on an LMIA or LMIA exempt, you may get up to 200 points, right? Proof of work experience, definitely needed, right? So any work experience, you need to have proof of work experience. And what does that proof look like in general, right? So that must be on a letterhead, right? And it should have certain elements. It should be a company letterhead and should say something like, this is to confirm that Mr. ABC worked as XYZ in this company from this date to this date. And let's say he was working 35 hours per week. He was earning X amount of money. These were the benefits. This is the job title. And these are the job duties and responsibilities. And it has to be signed by a supervisor or any authorized person or a HR, right? So that is the bare minimum. Plus, you need to provide some kind of supporting documents. If it's Canadian, maybe a T4, notice of assessment, pay stubs, right? Similarly, if it's outside Canada, pay slips would be a good idea, banking statement and income tax, so that they know that this experience, one, meets the requirements as far as the NOC code is concerned, because they're going to compare your job duties and title with the NOC definition and main duties and lead statement. So you need to be making sure that that matches in a way, even though the job title is not that big of a deal, because job titles could be anything. Job titles are only indicative, but the main duties and lead statements are very important, because that's what defines whatever. For example, let's say you're working as a customer service representative. From the title itself, it shows tier 4, but if your job duties are of something else, let's say administrative officer or something, but somebody else, so that might still qualify you for this. And certificate of qualification is only required in general for, let's say, federal skilled trades program, right? So that's when they either require that or you need an LMI based job offer. and if you have a certificate of qualification, you may get some points for that. Maybe I think at maximum is 50 points, and under the skill transferability factors. And then there's a proof of funds, not required for Canadian experience class, but if it's a federal skilled worker program or trades program, you need to show proof of funds. And that's and there are a few exceptions. For example, let's say if you have an arranged employment, then you may not need to show that proof of funds even for federal skilled worker program, right? And then you would need some other documents like police certificates at some point in time, uh, birth certificates if you have dependent children, and those kind of things. Then what you do is then you fill up the profile, you submit your profile. So there must be some way to submit your profile. And if you say, how do I submit your profile, right? And you basically create your express entry tool. And the way you will do is you just say, sign into your secure account, and it will say applications, like for example, express entry. So they are going to use this particular application. And if you already have a GC key account, so you can sign in, otherwise register for an account and follow the steps specifically. Okay, not that hard. But the problem here comes is that people, when they're doing the express entry profile, they make huge mistakes, right? Because they do not understand the question properly. And it's not like they don't understand all the questions. It's like one or two questions which can just, create so much havoc for your application. And immigration in general expects that at the time of you get an invitation to apply based on your profile, and it should be the same, right? So you need to make sure that your profile is always updated. So then what happens is you have submitted your profile, right? And then you are going to be waiting, right? So you will be waiting, you will be in the pool with all other people. I don't know how many that how big is the pool is, but if you want to know that at the time of recording this video in November, so let's look into how many people are in the pool as of today. So if I go here and I see how many people are in the pool, so I can tell you with quite certainty that as based on the October 22nd, 2024, so there are 211,780 profiles in the pool. So obviously, some profiles may be duplicate as well, which is generally not allowed. It's illegal. But nonetheless, so that's what the number of profiles are right now. Right? So now if these are the number of profiles and they are inviting like 2,000, 3,000 people per month, what chance do you have, right? So you can look into my other videos to increase, to understand how you can increase your chance of getting invitation. And that could be strategically planned by the by how do you basically improve your CS score, and also what kind of work experience you gain, and what kind of language requirements you can attain. So based on those, it could have a sizable impact, right? So then when you have you on the pool, so if you get an invitation to apply, you will have 60 days to submit your application, right? The completed application. And when you submit that application, the general processing times is around 6 months, and you can always see that. So these are the kind of steps you have to go through. And now I would urge you that if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe, like this video, share with anyone who you find it valuable. And I have created so many videos. Check the playlist, look at the description, you might something useful. And wish you all the very best. So that's what this video is about. And so just to give you a general idea as to what are the steps to creating an express entry profile, and how important it is to get your documents ready, because a lot of people don't have the documents ready, and then they start creating a profile and put the wrong information and get themselves into trouble. So bare minimum proof of work experience, bare minimum is your education requirements. If you have done any education from outside Canada, you need to have a credential in your hand, and you need to have a valid language test at the time of creating your profile. Those are bare minimum, apart from whatever we have discussed. So thank you so much, and wish you all the very best.